High Inquisitor Velthar had broken the minds of 1,000 species across the galaxy. The crystalline being's telepathic abilities were legendary, even among the ethereal collective, those ancient psychic entities who had mapped the consciousness of every known sentient race. His translucent form pulsed with confident energy as he approached the detention cell holding the human prisoner. The creature called itself Marcus Chen, captured during humanity's failed diplomatic mission to the Andromeda Confluence. It sat quietly on the metallic bench, brown eyes tracking Velthar's approach with what the Inquisitor interpreted as resignation. How typical. Most species cowered before the mind-ripping that was to come. Human. Velthar's voice resonated directly into Marcus's consciousness, bypassing the need for crude vocal communication. Your species has been charged with harboring dangerous thoughts that threaten galactic stability. I will extract every memory, every secret, every plan your kind possesses. Marcus looked up, his face surprisingly calm. You sure about that? Velthar's crystalline structure flickered with amusement. In his 3 millennia of existence, he had never encountered a mind he couldn't shatter and rebuild. The Zephyrians had lasted mere seconds before their peaceful thoughts dissolved into compliance. The warlike Krexani had held out for minutes before their aggression turned to subservience. Even the enigmatic Void Speakers, with their reality-bending consciousness, had eventually yielded their secrets. Humans would be no different. The Inquisitor extended his psychic tendrils, feeling the familiar electric thrill as they made contact with the alien mind. But instead of the expected resistance, followed by gradual submission, Velthar encountered something that made his entire being recoil in shock. The first memory hit him like a supernova. A small human child, perhaps 5 standard cycles old, standing in what appeared to be a primitive dwelling. The child's biological progenitors were nearby, their faces contorted in expressions Velthar couldn't immediately categorize. Then he understood. They were dying. A disease, something the human texts called cancer, was consuming the female progenitor. But that wasn't what shattered Velthar's composure. It was what the child did next. Instead of fleeing or surrendering to despair as any rational being would, the tiny human walked to its dying mother and said, "It's okay, Mama. I'll take care of Daddy and baby Emma. I promise." The raw emotional force of that moment, the impossible combination of love, determination, and defiance against the universe itself, slammed into Velthar's consciousness like a photon torpedo. His crystalline form cracked, hairline fractures spreading across his surface as he tried to process what he was experiencing. This wasn't just a memory. It was a fundamental pillar of human existence, the absolute refusal to surrender, even when facing the impossible. Velthar attempted to withdraw, but the human mind had him trapped now. More memories cascaded through the psychic link. A teenage human called Sarah, standing before a massive alien dreadnought during Earth's first contact war, armed with nothing but a primitive kinetic weapon and the unshakable belief that her homeworld would not fall on her watch. An elderly human scientist named Dr. Rodriguez, working 18-hour days for 7 years straight to cure a plague that was decimating colony worlds, never once considering that failure was an option. A human mother named Liu Wei, literally, wrestling a void spawn, a creature that had consumed entire star systems with her bare hands because it had threatened her infant child. Each memory was worse than the last. Not because they contained violence or horror, Velthar had witnessed the destruction of entire civilizations, but because they contained something far more terrifying. Hope. Irrational, impossible, universe-defying hope. Humans didn't just refuse to accept defeat. They refused to acknowledge that defeat was even a concept that applied to them. When faced with extinction, they built arcs. When confronted with godlike entities, they built better weapons. When told something was impossible, they did it anyway, then improved upon it during their lunch break. Velthar's psychic tendrils began to dissolve as the sheer audacity of human consciousness overwhelmed his ancient mind. These beings were a paradox, simultaneously fragile enough to die from a simple fall, yet possessing a will so indomitable that they had somehow convinced the universe itself to bend to their desires. "Stop," he whispered, his mental voice cracking like his physical form. "Please stop." But Marcus's mind wasn't finished. The deepest memory emerged, and Velthar realized with growing horror that he was looking at Marcus himself as a child, standing in the ruins of his bombed school, surrounded by the bodies of his classmates. Any sane being would have broken at that sight. Instead, young Marcus had picked up a piece of debris, carved his name into it, and declared to the empty air, "I'm going to see the stars someday, and I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else." That child had grown up to become humanity's first interstellar ambassador. Velthar's consciousness finally snapped free of the psychic link, and he collapsed onto the detention cell floor, his crystalline form shattered into thousands of pieces. Through the fractures, his essence leaked out like luminescent blood. Marcus stood up slowly, his expression shifting from calm to something approaching pity. "I tried to warn you. Human minds aren't built like everyone else's. We don't have safety switches or logical limits. Evolution didn't give us psychic powers or natural weapons. Instead, it gave us something far more dangerous." "What?" Velthar managed to gasp, his consciousness fragmenting. "The absolute certainty that there's always a way forward," Marcus replied, walking to the cell door that had somehow unlocked itself during the psychic feedback. "Even when there isn't, we make one." As the human walked away, leaving the broken Inquisitor behind, Velthar finally understood why the collective feared humanity enough to imprison them. It wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their complete and utter refusal to accept that anything was impossible. And that kind of thinking, Velthar realized as his consciousness finally faded, was the most dangerous force in the universe.